The New York Giants winning streak is over as the Saints deliver a blow to New York's already slim postseason hopes. What went wrong for the G-Men and what does this mean for them moving forward? That and more on today's Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family. Your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina, P-Train, credentialed member of the New York Giants media and member of Pro Football Writers Association. And ladies and gentlemen, not happy tonight. New York Giants, 24-6 to the New Orleans Saints, a loss, an offensive loss. And that's going to be our theme for today's show. Just an overall offensive performance. And I don't mean that in a good way. And we're going to talk about everything from the game plan to the offensive line, which is going to get a special mention, to the overall offensive performance, which extends to the defense, which had been so good. So I'm going to break it all down for you. And I'm going to not hold back here because there were a lot of things that just popped up that just had me shaking my head and made me wonder, what are they doing here? So just a heads up, I might get a little spirited on this show. And look, I'm going to give it to you guys straight like I always do. So thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. If you watch on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Shout out to my everydayers, my Blue Crew community members, our newcomers, and everybody in between. Love you guys. You guys make this all worth it for me. Let's get into it. I've got to start off, folks, with the fact that the New York Giants, thanks to their loss, they are now assured of their 9th losing season in 11 years. All right? It just seems like the more things change, the more things stay the same. But specifically, I want to talk about the offensive game plan. And I got to tell you, folks, I don't know what the coaches were thinking here. I mean, maybe if I sleep on it, it'll come to me. Maybe, if I get a chance to ask head coach Brian Daboll about it tomorrow, I'll get an answer. I doubt it. I just don't understand it, but let me vent. So here's the thing. The Giants were coming into this game, they were facing a run defense that was allowing 130 yards on the ground per game. So you say to yourself, okay, should be Saquon Barkley time, right? Let's run the ball down their throats until we can't anymore. So what happened? The New York Giants did try running the ball. In the first quarter, they ran it 5 times, got 3 yards, which, by the way, they were running Saquon Barkley up the gut out of that T formation, which I don't think has worked at all this entire year. But that's another story. Then in the second quarter, they ran it 6 times for 43 yards. And I'm thinking, okay, the running game is starting to loosen up. Maybe there's something here. At halftime, the Giants are down 7-6. They come out in the second half and they run the ball a grand total 5 times for 14 yards. 5 times for 14 yards. You heard correctly. I don't think I saw very many of any stretch runs, which had worked so beautifully. You look at Saquon and how he has done running different directions of the field. Now, coming into this game, according to Pro Football Focus, Saquon was averaging 4.36 yards per attempt when running to the right outer side between the right tackle and the tight end. The left side, he was averaging 4.79 yards per attempt, okay, running to that left outer side. They had him going in between the tackles. How does that make sense? Seriously, how does that make sense? Besides the fact that they abandoned the run, I thought prematurely, they're running him up the gut where he's not really good at pushing the pile. I don't understand that at all. And especially you have a rookie quarterback who is playing behind a sieve of an offensive line who is getting battered around like a pinball, and you're leaving him there to take that beating that he took? Come on. Now, let me give you a few other numbers here from this game plan. All right. The Giants had on third down, they averaged 10.7 yards per third down. Wow. That means they were in third and 10, or third and long a lot. They were 2 of 16 on third down conversions, 12.5%, which I believe is the worst mark of the season. They averaged, 3.2 yards per play total. That's with 38 pass attempts to 16 runs. All right. You don't think maybe that the offensive game plan could have been a little bit better, a little bit more balanced, running some of those outside runs that had worked so well for the Giants in past weeks? I mean, I don't know what the coaches saw. I don't know what the thought process was that went into that. Obviously, the coaching staff not available after a game other than for head coach Brian Dable. And, I was not at the game down in New Orleans, so I didn't get a chance to ask, but, hopefully I get to ask Dable tomorrow on the conference call. But I don't get it. I really don't understand why they got away from the run. Up the middle, the interior of the offensive line, okay, they weren't getting any push. They weren't getting any penetration. They weren't blocking. So what happened to the stretch runs? I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you. There were no red zone trips for the Giants. Their average gain per pass attempt versus rush, they gained 3.0 yards per pass attempt versus 3.2 yards per rush. Not a big difference, but you would say, okay, maybe they were having a little bit more success running the ball. So I don't understand that. And here's the other thing I don't understand with the passing game, and maybe somebody out there can explain this to me. Why can't the Giants, especially on third down, get guys to run to the sticks and have the quarterback throw to guys who are at the sticks? I mean, I kept saying all along as I'm watching this, I'm like, why are they throwing short of the sticks? How do they actually expect to move the chains if they're throwing short of the sticks and guys are, the defense is closing down on them? I don't understand that. I mean, I'd like to say, I can't remember the last time the Giants routinely threw to a receiver at the sticks. And it's bugged me now for the longest time with this offense. I mean, I really, really don't understand it. So you were left with a young quarterback, Tommy DeVito, who had played well, the last 3 games. He had his struggles this week, but he was under pressure, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And you basically threw him to the wolves. Didn't really give him any help. I think it's fair to question, did this game plan put everybody in the best position to be successful? I don't think it did. You might disagree, and that's fine, but I don't think it did. So here you have the results. 24-6. Giants shut out in the second half of the game. The Giants now have gone, I want to say it's 21 or 22 games now without scoring a touchdown on their opening drive. That is the longest streak in the NFL. Yeah, not very good, folks. Not very good at all. Now, I saved the offensive line for the next segment. I'm going to talk about that because I've got some problems with that offensive line, and in particular, the coaching. So that's coming up right after this. Hey, Giant fans. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, right? So that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. I've used LinkedIn Jobs to find aspiring writers for Giants Country, the site that I run over on SI's Fan Nation, and the process is not only super easy, but a big time saver. Simply add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize whom you'd like to interview and hire. So don't spend time sorting through endless resumes and dead-end leads. Put LinkedIn Jobs to work for you today for free by visiting linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, P Train. Oh, gosh, folks, I wish that we were talking about a win tonight. I really do. I mean, the Giants, they had a slim playoff chance, a slim chance at the playoffs. They're still mathematically alive, but let's call it what it is, folks. Their chances are dead. They're not going to make it. Not with 2 games remaining against the Eagles. And who knows if this team will even win another game the rest of the way. I mean, is the bloom off the rose of the DeVito era? After this performance, you could say yes. It's not all on DeVito. I got to give him props because he really showed up, his toughness, hung in there as best as he can. But I question if he was put in the best, position to succeed. And I want to talk about the offensive line because this is a unit we have all been screaming about now for I can't tell you how many years. It's been forever. We keep saying the Giants have got to fix the offensive line. And I agree with that. But here's the problem. If you are not getting the coaching to develop that offensive line, if you are seeing the same problems week after week after week, the inability to pick up a stunt on a consistent basis, 2 of the sacks today at least, were a result of stunts. The inability, to combo block, the inability to be consistent. I mean, what are we doing? At some point, you have to say, okay, is it the talent or is it the coaching that this team is hiring to work with the offensive line? Right? So everybody who's saying, okay, fix the offensive line. Yes, you could probably make a case that, okay, the starting guards that they have right now probably, need to be reconsidered. But how much of that is on the coaching? Some numbers. I mentioned 2 of the sacks, at least according to my unofficial count, came on against stunts. 1 stunt of which you had 3 guys blocking 2 outside defenders, and nobody bothered to pick up the guy that was looping inside. And I'm sitting there going, what are you doing, man? You're not picking up the guy that's looping inside? I was like flabbergasted. I couldn't believe it. All right. The Giants have allowed 76 sacks in 14 games. They are on pace for 93 sacks, which would be the second most in league history. I believe the record is 104 by the 1986 Philadelphia Eagles. That's bad. All right. If the Giants reach that 90 mark and above, that's bad. And I'm sorry, there's just no justifying retaining the offensive line coaching staff if that is the case. Because at some point, again, you have to question how much are they having a hand in the failures of this unit. All right. Now, let's talk about the unit in itself. So we saw Justin Pugh struggle. We have seen, Ben Bredesen have struggles. John Michael Schmitz, the center, has been up and down. Now, I get wanting to stay with continuity, but I sit there and when I see the constant struggles and the same struggles by the same guys week in and week out, and I don't see guys like, Marcus McKethan or Sean Harlow or Mark Lewinsky getting any kind of opportunity to maybe go in there and fix it, I got to ask, what are they doing in the classroom? What are they doing to improve this talent? Look, there's enough blame, I think, to go around to everybody. You can question the talent, and that's fine. I've got to question the coaching. All right. I don't think the coaching is innocent in this mess. I really don't. You look at, the guards. I mentioned the guards. Evan Neal currently, who's injured, he leads this according to Pro Football Focus. Coming into this game, Evan Neal, the right tackle, led the offensive lineman with 30 quarterback pressures allowed coming into this game. Number 2 and number 3, Ben Bredesen with 28, Justin Pugh with 23. Your starting guards, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? I mean, come on. Come on. I mean, you mean to tell me that McCathin, who, can't go in there, he hasn't improved enough? Now, I know he had an opportunity early in the year and he got benched, but he hasn't made any leeway to maybe go back in there and maybe see what you got with him, as opposed to Justin Pugh, who I don't think is even going to be on this roster next year. I don't get it. I really don't. So, again, people say, look, we got to fix the offensive line. They've got to fix the offensive line. You could bring in all the talent you want in the world on this offensive line. But if they're not being molded properly, if they're not being taught properly, if, the coaching is messing with their technique and making them uncomfortable, or, not preparing them, which, if you, for my everydayers, if you saw my airing of the grievances a couple weeks ago during the bye, you know that I had a big problem with how the Giants got their offensive line ready for the season and how they failed to really let guys settle in at the positions they were going to play. And then all of a sudden they were left with having to scramble when injuries happen. So coaching definitely has to take blame here. And, I don't know what the future holds for this coaching staff, but I got to believe that this is just not acceptable. And it is also just not justifiable to say, okay, Bobby Johnson, you're going to get another year to work with this offensive line. So, we'll see. We still have 3 more games to be played. I doubt things are going to turn around in those next 3 games, but I do think that a shakeup needs to happen specifically at that unit, because this is just not getting better. And it just seems like year after year after year after year. And some of you will say, well, during the 3-game winning streak, the offensive line played well. They also played softer defenses. So take that for what it's worth. Look at the better defenses that this offensive line has played, and then tell me if you think that, that line is making progress. I don't think they have. You might feel otherwise, though. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about another offensive performance, but this side, on the other side of the ball. Don't go anywhere. Hey, Giant fans, as the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and score big this NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Hey, Giant fans, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you all day, every day, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national sports shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, everybody, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, P-Train, 24/6. The dream is dead. Better luck next year. We'll see you next year. Well, we've got 3 more games to go. And, of course, we're talking about this one, takeaways. And I'm trying to be as blunt as possible with you guys because you deserve it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Never have, never will. And before I get to the defensive side of the ball, just real quick, on tomorrow's Locked On Giants podcast, I am speaking with Mike Sando of The Athletic, and we are talking all things Giants. We're talking ownership, coaching, the coaching rumors about the strife, the players, the quarterback future, all kinds of topics. We're talking on a national scale. Mike shared with me some of his, what he's been hearing. So that interview is coming up on Locked On Giants tomorrow. Also this week, we, of course, will have Crossover Thursday. The Eagles are up next. The Eagles. Okay. I call them Eagles, but Eagles on Christmas Day. That ought to be fun, right? So we will have the crossover show. I believe I'm going to have Gino Camilleri of Locked On Eagles. I think it's going to be him. I think I usually get him for the road games and Lou DiBiase for the home games. So we're going to hear from them. And I'm also hoping to get another player interview for you lined up this week. So I'm just waiting to see if the player becomes available and we can get this done. So that's what's coming up on Locked On Giants podcast. Thank you again for tuning in and for your support. You guys are the best. And also, if ever you want a specific topic, you want me to talk about a specific topic, just drop a comment below the video if you're watching on YouTube, or send me an email. The email address is in the show notes, and just say, hey, why don't you talk about this? And, if I can make a show out of it, I'm happy to do so, because at some point, you guys are probably tired of hearing about the losses from this team. I know I would be if I were in your shoes. But anyway, we still got to talk about this one. And I've got to talk now about the offensive performance by the defense. Now, let me start off by just saying that it is unfair to constantly expect the defense to bail you out. All right. The defense over the last 3 games, the win streak, turnovers, sacks, pressures, they were playing tight. They were doing everything necessary to help the young quarterback out. And this week, 1 sack, 0 turnovers, 2 quarterback pressures. And my goodness, what was up with the defensive secondary? I mean, there were times when the coverage just looked like an absolute mess. All right. They allowed a few deep passes where guys just looked at each other like, it was your guy. No, it was your guy. So I'm not sure exactly what happened with the defensive secondary, but at times it looked like an absolute mess. And this is without Chris Olave, who was inactive for the Saints. Their best receiver was inactive, and yet the Saints still managed to complete passes to 10 different receiving targets. So kudos to Derek Carr for that, for having a solid game. But let's talk about some additional numbers by the Giants defense. They allowed 50% of the third down opportunities by the Saints to be converted. Yikes. The Saints were 2 for 2 in the red zone. Yikes. I mean, I just felt like the defense was flat. Who made a big play? Who on defense can we honestly say made a big play? I thought Adoree Jackson had a bad game. There were times when he was just getting beat like a drum. I don't know what the heck happened with him. Just looking at the stat sheet, just real quick, your leading tackler, safety Jason Pinnock, 8 combined tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 quarterback hit. He was followed by Ashawn Robinson, who also had 8 tackles. They actually tied. So they both had 7 solos, 1 assist for 8 total. Then you had Micah McFadden, Adoree Jackson. I mention this because ideally you want your front 7 to be your leaders in tackling. And I get it that, maybe they were playing, their safeties up closer in the box to stop Alvin Kamara. But I don't know, just to me, it just seemed like there were some missed opportunities by the defense. I thought guys had quiet games too. I'm looking and I'm like, okay, did we hear much from Thibodeau, for example. I think he had one tackle, and that was it. So, was it what the Saints were doing? They were without Ryan Ramczyk, their offensive tackle. So were they just neutralizing the Giants defense? I don't know. I mean, on first glance, I would say probably, but I just felt like the Giants defense was lacking the bite that we had seen over the last 3 games. And that was disturbing to me. Now, again, no team that had ever started out 2-8 in the season had ever gone on to qualify for the postseason. The Giants, if you remember, started off 2-8. So their odds of going to the postseason, and even though we talked about it, they weren't very high. I think we all knew that. But it was a fun story. It was something to cling to. It gave everybody a glimmer of hope. Well, it's safe to say that even though the Giants haven't mathematically been eliminated, they're not making the playoffs. No way. So here we are, another losing season. And I just want to leave you with one final point. The Superdome, every time they go down there, it just seems that something funky happens. Something bad happens. Well, besides the fact that they lost, they had both of their kickers get injured in this game. Randy Bullock pulling a hamstring on a kickoff. I think it was in the first quarter. And Jamie Gillen, the punter, who at one point had a wrap put on his left leg, his plant leg, he had to do all the kicking for the Giants. Now, fortunately, the kickoffs were fine. The field goal attempt that he made was good. But now the Giants potentially have to look at getting at least another place kicker. Now, do they bring up Cade York, who's on the practice squad, or do they bring in a veteran? Cade York, remember, was inactive for the 3 games. He was on the 53-man roster. Giants kept elevating Bullock. So now that's another situation they got to resolve, because depending on how badly Bullock's hamstring is. And folks, on that note, this game, not good. I want to thank you for allowing me to vent. I'm sure a lot of you have the same frustrations I do. I hope this was somewhat therapeutic for you. I want to thank you for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day, or if you watch on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Don't forget, tomorrow, Mike Sando joins me from The Athletic. We talk all things Giants from a national perspective. You won't want to miss that show. My name is Patricia Traina. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you tomorrow with a new episode of Locked On Giants.